According to the Literacy Project Foundation, it is estimated that currently 45 million Americans are functionally illiterate and cannot read above a fifth grade level. Furthermore, 50% of adults cannot read a book above an eighth grade level. And furthermore, only 1/3 of fourth graders reach a proficient reading level. Maya Smart is on a mission to make reading and literacy more accessible, understandable, and more present today in the lives of our children. As an author, seasoned speaker, and literacy advocate, she helps parents and children nurture, teach, and advocate for children on their road to reading. Her book, Reading for Our Lives, a literacy action plan from birth to 6, provides a step-by-step guide to helping our children flourish and thrive as readers and learners. Smart also provides her perspective on how to make our current educational system more equitable and transparent for all children of all abilities. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Maya, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn all about your journey in literacy. Great to be with you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome, and I know that your professional journey is all about helping parents nurture their child's journey in literacy. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the great work that you do.
Absolutely. My daughter is 11 years old. So when I first had her, I was really curious about what I needed to do to help her become a strong, fluent reader because I'm a big book lover myself. And so wanted to pass that on to her. And there wasn't a lot of information out there with details for parents. So a lot of the advice parents get include general things like have lots of books around the house, read to them daily, take them to the library. But I wanted a little more detail about all the things that go into nurturing and teaching kids to read, starting from when they're babies and you first bring them home. So this book compiles all of the answers that I received through reading a lot of academic research and interviewing people. And I compiled those findings into the book to give parents an idea of how reading unfolds through the years and the specific things they can do at each age and stage to help their kids thrive.
Yeah, and I know it's all about an action plan from birth to age 6 and provide a step-by-step guide on helping children thrive when it comes to making them efficient readers. So I'm wondering if you could tell me all about the book.
Yes. So some of the things that the book, there are actually 2 chapters devoted to talk and just having back and forth exchanges with kids, even before they're old enough to speak back to you in words and sentences. So it's really important for parents to know that with little babies, newborns, children that are less than a year old, you can have conversations with them, and you should treat their coos and babbles and gestures and eye gaze and all of those communication cues that they're giving you, treat it as conversation and respond with words and sentences and label and point out things in your environment, because the little ones really are learning from day one. And all of the words that we speak to them through those early years are words that they'll one day be able to recognize in print when they learn to read. So
Uh,
the talk was an important piece of it.
yeah, absolutely. And I also know that you're extremely passionate and providing families and parents free resources that help them create things like lists and activities to make reading and literacy more fun. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about the resources you offer on your website as well.
Yes. So parents spend a lot of time with their children, and kids are pulling at them in different directions, and parents can feel distracted and fatigued and have a lot of things going on. So sometimes it's helpful just to have a little support and guidance. So each week on myasmart.com, there's a resources section, and each week I publish new lists of kids books that parents might enjoy. So we have book lists up now related to fall activities and Halloween and the seasons. And then we also have activities that parents can do with kids, things that children will enjoy. So we have some simple recipes that they can help prepare, but we call them Read With Me recipes, because we also, alongside the recipe, offer some literacy lessons and letter sounds and letter names. And so each week we have different activities, book lists, and just free resources that any parent can grab and use with their children. And we've been publishing those for a while, so we have actually hundreds of blog posts.
Yeah, fascinating. And I know it's also important to you to sort of build literacy consistency when it comes to children and making sure that they have a good habits when it comes to literacy. So I'm wondering your thoughts on the current state of education in America and how we teach literacy to children. What do you like? What do you not like? What do you think needs to stand to be improved?
I think that there needs to be much greater support of teachers in terms of training them the nuts and bolts of teaching children to read, and then supporting them with high quality curriculum in the classroom. And also there needs to be greater investment in tutoring, because the fact of the matter is that because of setbacks due to COVID and distance learning and all kinds of challenges that schools have been experiencing recently, kids need more support than ever. And so I think it's really important that there's greater investment in high quality reading instruction and tutoring in schools. And then I also think it's important for there to be greater investment in parents, because we know that a lot of the brain structure and function that supports reading is developed in infancy and toddlerhood. And so we need to educate parents about their role as children's first and best teachers. So I think we need a combination of improvement in quality education, systematic explicit phonics instruction in early elementary school, and also earlier foundations for learning in homes prior to the school years.
Yeah, absolutely. And just building on your last answer, what do you think are some of the keys to closing the learning gap and really finding a way to reach a wide variety of children? Because, not all children learn to read and write and learn the same way. So what do you think is the key to closing the learning gap and reaching as many kids as possible?
I think that we have to put in place strong curriculum that teaches in an explicit, direct, systematic way those connections between letters and sounds. We can't assume that kids will learn to read just by being read to or having exposure to books. So we really need just more and more teachers who are really able to teach a child the nuts and bolts of how to read. And we can't assume that kids will enter kindergarten with all of the foundational skills that they need. So that's why I'm also a big advocate for tutoring, because the only way to close that gap is to give more time and attention to understanding what each individual child's issues are. We can't have kind of a mass approach to closing those gaps, because each child is different in terms of the things that they need when they've struggled to learn. Some children have speech issues or hearing issues that affect their ability to read. Some children just haven't been taught, letter sounds and shapes. And so we need a serious emphasis on assessments to figure out what kids know and don't know. And then we need excellent teachers and materials and tutors to teach them the things that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maya, I'm just gonna share just a little bit about myself. So I was actually born with cerebral palsy, and for my own educational journey, I know that special education was big for me and providing the necessary resources for me to thrive in school. And I originally went to school to become a sports reporter. And, one of the reasons I wanted to get into journalism is because of my love of English and writing. So tell me about the importance of also investing in special education for students with disabilities as well.
Yes, it's absolutely critical that we recognize that every child has amazing potential and that we need to nurture that potential in every child. And we need to have more funding to help people with their particular challenges, whether, it could be a reading challenge or a physical disability or all kinds of issues. And I think the challenge in education is that there's an emphasis on trying to do what's best for most children, but we have to balance that with the need to really bolster and build up individual children on their journey. And that takes a lot of assessment. And I think it takes high quality instruction. It takes, and by instruction, I'm referring to the teachers. Like the teachers have to be trained well in order to be able to meet the needs of the students. And I think teachers need to be compensated well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you led into my next question. And, how do you think we can make teaching a more attractive profession? As teaching students today isn't the same as it was 10 to 15 years ago. So outside of being pay equality, how do you think we can make the teaching profession more attractive?
I think that it comes through public awareness campaigns. Like we've seen in some cases advertising campaigns that really raise our awareness of different social issues and make us think about things in different ways. And I think it can be as simple as reminding people of just the value of the teachers that they had in their lives that contributed to their success. But the fact of the matter is there are also a lot of people who had bad experiences in school. But I think it's almost like we just need to be reminded of how important it is to get these skills and how important the people who help us get them are. So I don't know if there are advertising campaigns for different professions, or maybe it can be through almost just there are holidays like teacher appreciation, but I'm trying to imagine like a more substantive way just to remind people that teachers help us become the best versions of ourselves. And we need to remember that and respect them. I think that schools are in a situation where they're doing so many different things beyond education. They're serving breakfast, they're serving lunch, they're serving as connections to different community resources. And there are all these demands that sometimes we forget the basics of a subject area that kids need to learn and the people who help them learn it.
Yeah, and you brought something up that piqued my interest in terms of the mental health of teachers, because as you had mentioned, teachers are asked to wear many hats these days. So tell me about your perspective on how important it is to value the mental health of educators as well.
Yes, our children are in their care for hours and hours a day. And there have been so many reports also about the poor mental health of students coming out of the pandemic. And so it's critical that teachers are well supported and nurtured and given opportunities to take care of themselves as whole people, aside from the roles as teachers, so that they can then model those positive mental health habits for kids, and they can help facilitate kids' social and emotional learning as well. So we all need support for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But you had mentioned earlier about your children and having a personal passion for this work, but I'm wondering where it specifically comes from and why you're so passionate about the work that you do.
There are so many challenges and problems that we face in society, and reading is one that is really solvable. Like there has been so much research in the last 30 years that reveals powerful information about how children learn to read and how they're most effectively taught. So I feel like it's just a matter of more widely disseminating that information to teachers, to parents, to community members, so that we all can support kids. So I think part of why I'm so passionate about this work is one, it personally resonates with me as a big reader and lover of the written word. And then two, it's one area where we have excellent information where we actually can implement it and make a huge difference for millions and millions of kids. So it's that combination of it. And it's critical for people's success in life. You can't really thrive in a career or manage your life if you're unable to read. So the fact that it's a big issue and a solvable one is appealing to me and keeps me motivated every day just to talk to podcasters like you and other folks to spread the message more widely.
Yeah, it's important to find your inner passion and motivation, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, and Maya, I also know that you're an affiliated faculty for educational policy and leadership at the College of Education at Marquette University. I'm curious for you to tell me about the work that you do in this role and your more broader view on how we can sort of uplift the quality of education that we offer children.
Absolutely. So I've been in Milwaukee for just about a year now. So I moved right before my book deadline, actually. And so I was pleased to be in this new city when the book launched, and have had wonderful support from the Marquette community in spreading this message. So I've had wonderful visits to the Hartman Literacy Center on campus, which tutors children. So that's a really hands-on program that gives students who are learning to teach reading opportunities to support kids who've fallen behind in reading and help catch them up over the summer. And so through the College of Education, just have had all these wonderful touch points to see reading instruction and action. So I view my work as more parent focused, but there comes a time when parents must partner with teachers in their children's education as kids get older. So it's been wonderful to have the opportunity to be at a university that really values teaching high quality reading instruction, teaching teachers to transform kids' lives through reading.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that connect us together on a personal level there, Maya, is that I have a degree in journalism, and I know that you also hold a master's degree in journalism from Northwestern, one of the most prestigious journalism schools, and you also hold a bachelor's of social studies. So I'm curious on your take on how journalism has sort of evolved over the years and the way society views the profession as well.
I think that journalism has a lot more competition these days because there are so many platforms for people to use their voices. And there are so many instances where people are accessing information outside of, there was a time when there were 3 big TV stations and everyone tuned in to those evening newscasts. And now everything is more fractured. We all have the ability to publish our ideas and information on any emerging issue at any time using just our phones. So I was in journalism school in 2005, and I remember hearing about iPods for the first time. Well, I was there, and then now, iPods are obsolete and our phones are the device where we can record audio, video, and distribute it worldwide via social media channels. So it's a different world, but the need for high quality journalism and fact checking and research and all of those things are even more important than ever because of all of the voices that are out there. We really do need a discipline that's dedicated to fact finding and investigation.
Yeah, and to that point, I'm curious whether you think that objectivity and fairness is sort of eroding a little bit in the journalism perspective profession, because as journalists, we always want to be the first to report a story, but it's also important to get it right. Right? It's better to be second and right than first and then wrong. Right? So, tell me about the importance of journalism, objectivity, and fairness in your view as well.
I think that to your point, there's sort of this race to get the most eyeballs on things, to be the first to report things. And then you see a lot of copycat reporting where someone comes out with sort of an in-depth piece, putting forth some really compelling, well-researched information. And then there are just a bunch of lesser copies of that same thing. So it is just kind of a different landscape, but we'll always need the quest for accuracy and better information, and also the inclusion of more voices. So moving away from a kind of journalism that's centered on like official reports and voices and neglects the voice of people who are directly impacted by policy. So I think that there's an opportunity for the greatest journalism ever because of all the access that we have to people and information, but it definitely takes discipline and it takes study to do it well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maya, you may not know this, but October is also a National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So tell me, one of the reasons I love journalism is because I believe that everyone has a platform. Everyone has a story, and they deserve a platform to share their information in an objective and fair way. So tell me about, as we commemorate the importance of this month in terms of employment for folks with disabilities, tell me, how do you think we can get more journalists with disabilities infused into journalism and the workforce in general?
I think it really takes a conscious effort on the part of who developed the pipeline to journalism careers. So that's journalism schools, and also informal ways that we're educating people to write and report. But then on the part of employers, we have to build pipelines for people. And that starts with acknowledging where we've fallen short in terms of hiring people with disabilities. I think it's also important to highlight success stories, people who've kind of forged their own path and found a way into journalism, and highlighting all that they've accomplished to raise the awareness of employers that people can do this work with, X disability or Y disability. So we have to, it's kind of like a public education campaign, but also it's a cause that needs champions within newsrooms and champions within journalism schools. Excellent question.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm also curious to ask you about, because, for myself, a big part of the way I consume information is by listening through ebooks and having it I'm an audio learner, so I consume information better if I hear it read back to me instead of reading a whole bunch of words on a page. So I'm curious to ask you about the diversification of how we can teach kids to read today.
I think that it's important for people to understand two big buckets that contribute to reading. So on one hand, there's decoding, and that's when people think of teaching a child to read, they're thinking of making those matches between the letters they see in print and the sounds that they hear. But the other big piece of it that contributes to reading comprehension, like really understanding the words on the page and the sentences and paragraphs and the concepts that they're meant to represent, comes from vocabulary and oral language experience. I think it's important to remember that the decoding is a critical piece, but it's not the only piece, and that kids on the road to reading can learn a great deal through conversation, through audiobooks, because they're learning, again, about vocabulary and meaning and all of those things. But when it comes to teaching reading in the sense of making sense of print on the page, then you have to attend to the print and teach decoding as well. But yeah, there's great value to audiobooks.
Yeah, absolutely. And but I'm curious to ask you, what's your greatest hope as we continue to make progress in teaching kids how to read? What's your greatest hope for the future of literacy in general?
My greatest hope is that there will be widespread public awareness of the fact that reading just doesn't happen naturally, that we really have to have take an intentional and long-term approach to cultivating early literacy skills and teaching reading. So my big hope is that people will understand that the roots of reading begin at birth. And I think once more people understand that and understand how vocabulary plays a role and how phonemic awareness, which is recognition of sounds within words, contributes, and how letter knowledge and experience with print, how all these factor into skilled and fluent reading, then more people can support kids on that journey, parents and teachers, of course, but also neighbors and community members and business owners. We can all get in on the act of supporting kids and gaining these skills and also having access to books.
Yeah, absolutely. And my final question for you this afternoon has to do with your own personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
I would like to be remembered as someone who was passionate about reading and also passionate about sharing the gift of reading with all children.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, if people want to get connected with the great work that you do, what's the best way they can do that?
They can visit my website, mayasmart.com. So Maya is spelled M-A-Y-A. So that's MAYASMART.com. And in the resources section, again, every week I publish kids' book lists, family activities, and different resources. And they're organized by age and stage. So you'll be able to find what you're looking for your particular child. And then at mayasmart.com/book, there's also information about my book, Reading for Our Lives, a Literacy Action Plan from Birth to Six. If you'd like to consume the book either in paper format or ebook or audiobook, all the links are available on that page.
Well, fabulous, Maya. I really commend you on the extensive and extraordinary work that you've done in the field of literacy and helping kids carve out a roadmap to become better readers. Your work in the space and time on my behalf is most appreciated, and it was delightful to be with you this afternoon, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.